Hello and welcome to the 63rd episode of Inner Defense. Hello Abhishek, what's up?
Hi Dev, how are you doing?
All well.
Are you
How's life? How's work?
Work is as usual, nothing new.
Yeah.
As we record today, just to remind our viewers, it's 3 years of
Yes.
the Galwan
The
clash.
Galwan clash. Yeah.
So that's one thing that we were thinking, should we discuss or not? But
But I mean, we'll actually get the show description to have some links because we've discussed
We've
China
discussed
at
that,
length,
yeah.
especially what happened that night. At
Yeah,
the
we
Galwan
have,
Valley.
we have, yeah.
You've given a very vivid account of just how ferocious the fight was.
Yeah.
Icy waters, cold and dark completely.
yeah.
So we'll have links to that. Actually, also it's something we've discussed, but there was another attempt by China at disinformation earlier this week, I think.
Recently, isn't it?
Couple of days ago.
New pictures.
New pictures, yeah. That they basically wanted to portray that, our army is so great and,
I'm sure we also have pictures. The Indian
Yeah.
Army also has pictures. I mean,
Yeah.
these pictures, not to say that these pictures are untrue, but they don't tell the complete truth.
Yeah. But what's important is all these moves by China, just like
It's a little kiddish.
yeah, exactly. And they are kind of underline of how much that incident has impacted the psyche.
Yeah.
Because on the face of it, they're like, kuch hua nahi, nothing, no. Initially, there was like no one died. And then
Yeah,
obviously they released information internally that...
It's like kids saying, कि see, हमारे पास ये है, to show you.
Yeah.
But I mean, the pictures are taken on both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
You always see whenever there are these clashes, somebody in that frame actually comes who's seen with a camera taking pictures somewhere in the background. So they're taken
Yeah.
from both sides. I don't know what's the big deal. Unless you want to just do some propaganda. So I'm pretty sure that there are pictures on both sides. We have pictures as well.
Yeah,
And it doesn't really matter.
exactly.
Yeah.
We know what happened.
Yeah.
So we've discussed China several episodes of this podcast, and I think some of the feedback that we've gotten also has been pretty good when it comes to our China specials. So for our viewers and listeners, we'll have the links in the description. You can just go back and listen to them. And if you have any feedback for us, whether it's on those episodes or other episodes as well, you can drop a text to us at 8588966996 or an email to us at pods@indiatoday.com. That's pods@indiatoday.com. Right. So this week we'll talk about a topic that we haven't touched upon.
Before we start with this week's topic, just a little update because last week we did a full show on big defense deals.
Yes.
So there's another one that is coming up.
Yeah,
So
I
just
think
like to sort
lining
of introduce it to our listeners and viewers, the drone deal with the US once again for the Predator armed drones. It's likely that the Defense Acquisition Council will give a go-ahead and maybe some kind of an MOU or something
Will be signed during the PM's visit. Upcoming
But still early stages. It's been in the pipeline for a while. 30 armed drones that India wants to buy for all three forces, and this will be sort of a new capacity building because India doesn't really have armed drones
Yes.
till now. So
Yeah.
this is a big deal. If it happens, it's pretty expensive. And once again, as we had discussed earlier, that some of the sticking points are transfer of technology and
Of course.
and maintenance costs later on and things like that. So if those are ironed out and if a deal can be inked, that is win-win for both sides. That will be a big thing.
Yeah.
So just a small introduction
Yeah,
to that.
and we'll obviously track that because hopefully I think by the time we record again, we'll have some more information
Yes,
on this. Especially with the visit of PM Narendra
Yeah,
Modi coming very close now. I think it's next, I think within 10 days he'll be.
Yes, it's 21st to
21st
24th.
yeah. So we'll track that and, maybe perhaps talk about that if need be. This episode, let's talk about, we haven't touched this topic over our several episodes, the Northeast. Crucial part of the larger defense and security of the country. We discussed on one episode that defense is not always about external threats. especially in India's setup. You obviously have Jammu and Kashmir, you have the insurgency in central India, and you have some trouble spots in the northeast. We've discussed northeast only in the context of China because of the border with that country. But I think by now, I think our listeners and viewers must have guessed what we are kind of going towards. This is Manipur. Violence hit, I think, over a month ago. There are still, and there are still sporadic incidents. I think some reports came out just yesterday of another more killings.
And, there was a minister's house.
Minister's house being targeted, burned down. Yeah. So, as things happen in India, whenever you have a topic making headlines, whether it was, I don't know, electricity cut during the pandemic or something like Manipur, overnight people become experts on it, especially in social media. Like, सबको अचानक से पता है कि I know exactly what's wrong with the Northeast. I know exactly what's going on in Manipur. I know what the Meiteis want. I know what the Kukis want. I know everything about. Yeah.
So disclaimer: I am not an expert.
Yeah.
I am not an expert. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on anything. Yes, I just track these things.
Which is why this chat
closely.
Yeah, which is why this chat.
I like to follow the nuances, but that doesn't make me an expert.
Yeah. So which is why this chat, that over your years of experience of covering the defense sector, obviously the Northeast would have been a part of it, because we may not talk about it much in the mainstream conversations, but obviously it's a big part of the setup, the military, the defense setup of the country. So you definitely have met officials and officers from different departments who have been dealing with the Northeast issue. So you can talk about the Northeast overall. We'll focus on Manipur. So first things first and very basics. What exactly happened in Manipur in the last 1 month, and why are we talking about it today?
Do you want me to start with Manipur, or do you want me to start with a bit of a personal story about Northeast?
Personal stories always help, because I think they bring that insight and kind of
help
us.
For some reason, despite covering the security spectrum for a very long, my first visit to Northeast happened quite late.
Achha.
I didn't get the opportunity for some reason to visit Northeast and report from there. It was only in 2018 that I went there for the first time.
Oh.
And this was to Nagaland.
Okay.
And why this is an interesting story, because since then I've made many visits to the Northeast.
Okay.
Barring Manipur, by the way. For some reason, I have not had the time to spend a lot of time in Manipur. I've spent a lot of time in Nagaland, Arunachal, Assam, Sikkim, even though Sikkim is not technically the Seven Sisters, but yeah, it's in the northeastern part of the country. Mizoram, I've been and traveled till the border. So the story is that the first time I went, and I was in a meeting with the Corps Commander, in the 3 Corps Commander then, which is based out of a place called Ranga Pahad, close to Dimapur.
Okay.
So that's the cantonment area. So he asked me, young man, how many times have you come to this part of the country? So I said, this is the first time that I have come here. So he said, you will at least make 7 more visits. Because that's the folklore here, that anybody who crosses the Brahmaputra once has to do it 7 times.
Okay.
And he was bang on.
Wow. You finished 7.
It's been more than 7. So yeah, that's what Northeast is. It's a fascinating land. You always come back with a lot of unlearning from there. You realize how little you know about your country and about the history, about the culture. It's a civilization. It's not just a society. It's a civilization which has a very rich heritage, culture, pride. And coming to what's happening in Manipur, it's all probably linked to that pride somewhere East has seen, which we can talk about as we speak further. But now just to explain simply, as you said, what's happening in Manipur. Manipur is going through a really, really, really severe series of ethnic violence. I mean, it would be an understatement to call it bloody violence or anything. It's just beyond. It's gone beyond that. It's been over a month that clashes are taking place between the Meitei and the Kuki, two communities in Manipur. Meitei is the dominant community, which they constitute over 50%, 53% of the state's population. Kukis are a tribe which constitute Christians, also Buddhists, even Muslims, maybe in lesser number. So first things first, it's not Christian versus Hindu. So if people have read or heard or somebody suggested to them that this is a Hindu-Christian communal violence, it's not.
Totally not, yeah.
The reason, the trigger for the violence was a long-standing demand by the Meitei community asking for scheduled tribe status, ST status. The matter reached the High Court, Manipur High Court. The Manipur High Court had said that had asked the state government to give a recommendation to the effect of how this should be implemented and how ST status can be given. This was the trigger because the Kukis thought that this would be encroaching upon their sort of land and areas. Kukis are in ST status. They have scheduled tribe status. They live in the hill areas. Meiteis constitute the valley. Meiteis are not allowed to buy land or settle in the hill areas, and that's what has led to some tensions. Why are we discussing this on a defense podcast? That's. I think we need to tell our viewers and our listeners this very clearly. Manipur and other parts of Northeast, Manipur and Nagaland are very much a security issue for the country. They've seen insurgencies that are really old, and it somehow goes under the radar, isn't it?
Yeah.
We hear and listen to so much about Kashmir and Pakistan. Everybody is a Kashmir expert, as you mentioned about experts. So because Kashmir insurgency, terrorism has been in the news much more for whatever reason. So everybody in this country is a Kashmir expert. Not so much with the Northeast.
But to buttress what you're saying, I mean, and there was thinking your reporting itself that an exercise on the lines of the surgical strikes across the LOC into Pakistan, but much bigger and much more important for the Indian security establishment, had actually taken place a year before the 2016 surgical strikes. In
2015
across the Northeast.
That was actually
Operation Sunrise, if I'm not wrong.
No, Operation Sunrise was different.
Okay, sorry.
Operation Sunrise was something that actually I broke, which has seen several phases. It's a continuing operation. That was a strike as a counter to an extremely horrifying incident that had happened where the Indian Army lost 18 soldiers
in ambush.
In an ambush by NSC and K, the Khaplang faction of the insurgent group NSC, and which is Khaplang group is the more deadly one. They've not been coming. It's a Naga group. See, it's a bit complicated now.
Yes.
So we are discussing Manipur, but now we are discussing a Naga outfit.
Yes.
It's all connected somewhere, but it doesn't mean that they are all the same.
Of course.
That these are the complexities that come in. So now that we are at, since you mentioned the surgical strike, so that was a strike carried out by the Indian Army across the border in Manipur, targeting hideouts of this particular
group. Myanmar, you mean?
Yeah. Of this particular group. See, Naga insurgency is probably the oldest insurgency probably in the world. I don't know. It goes back to 1919. That's when the Naga club was formed for the first time, and they raised their demands for self-determination. This was pre-independence India because of their distinct identity and things like that. the Naga movement, the Naga insurgency is obviously, Nagaland, parts of Manipur, the hills where Nagas live, the hill areas of Manipur has a considerable Naga population as well. And their demand is Greater Nagalem or Greater Nagaland, which constitutes, according to them, entire Nagaland, parts of Manipur, parts of Myanmar. So that's one. There are several insurgent groups in Manipur. This is what makes things extremely complicated. So again, many people would be pushing an agenda that it's Christian versus Hindu.
Yes.
See, we need to be very careful with every word that we speak.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm speaking very slowly. So
Very slowly.
I don't
actually,
utter something which
you don't even look a bit as relaxed as you normally do.
Yeah,
by the
which hurts sentiments, because they are very sensitive
Yes.
things involved here. The northeastern people are very sensitive about these issues, so one needs to be extremely careful while writing and speaking, and we are not following a script.
Yes.
So we need to be all the more careful.
Yeah.
As I was saying, there are various insurgent groups in Manipur as well, and these insurgent groups are both Kuki as well as Meitei. So it's not one versus the other or something like that. And then there is the Naga element as well to the insurgency in Manipur. The trigger was nothing to do with insurgency.
Yes.
We need to make that very clear.
Yeah.
It was purely a very domestic issue which has reached this level. But whenever a domestic problem reaches such high levels of violence, you cannot discount the insurgency
Of course.
aspect.
I mean, that'll happen almost in any part of the country. I mean, whenever you have violence,
Yes.
the local bad elements
Taking
will
advantage
will
of the
obviously try to do
fault
that.
lines.
Yes.
And that's why we are discussing it here. Because, again, the illegal immigrant story that you hear, that the cookies have, they have relations across the border and things like that, and they could be involved in illegal immigration, and they could have links with Kuki insurgent groups. Well, there are Meitei insurgent groups as well, which predate the Kuki insurgent groups. So a bit of history of Manipur. India got independence in 1947, but Manipur was unified with the Union of India in 1949, 2 years after the merger happened, 2 years after independence. Full statehood came in 1972, and the insurgency started in the 60s.
Yeah.
Demanding a separate state, autonomy, things like that. Now, a lot of Kuki groups have actually come to the negotiating table. I'm talking about insurgency groups. I'm not talking about the ethnic violence that is happening right now. The Meitei groups actually are a little more rigid when it comes to this. So exactly, the point that I'm trying to make is not every Kuki is part of an insurgent group. Not every Meitei is part of an insurgent group. There are elements who have from society who have been part of insurgency. And see, again, sometimes we ask for very clear answers. Is insurgency terrorism? I don't have an answer to it.
No, it's a very complicated question.
I don't have an answer to it. Actually, in Hindi, there are separate words. Ugravad is militancy and insurgency, and Atankwad is terrorism.
Yeah.
So I don't have clear answers to these kind of things, especially because you have to follow the history. A history of self-determination is what we are talking here. And the complexities that go with it on relations on the other side of the border that people have in Manipur and in Nagaland, both bordering Nagaland. That adds another dimension. Yes, there are these groups indulge in extortion, drug trade, etc. Yeah, there are definitely organized criminal insurgent groups, and that's why they are banned outfits.
Yes.
So there's no doubt about it. Manipur is a state under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, AFSPA. In the 80s, AFSPA was imposed. Although 19 areas under 19 police station, if I'm not wrong, is where AFSPA has been
withdrawn
from in Manipur.
Yeah.
So that is a big thing, big breakthrough. So these I mean, I think that's just an introduction about the complexities cities involved in Northeast, and in particularly we're focusing on Manipur right now, and how Manipur insurgency and bits of Naga insurgency are very different, but at the same time where they come together, at least some parts of it. 2015 is when the Naga peace accord, the government made this big announcement that some peace accord is being made.
Yes.
It turned out to be a dud, unfortunately, and nothing has happened since then. NSCN, IM has been in talks. Some framework agreement was discussed, but again, that Khaplang group, which is the more deadly, has not come forward for any talks. They don't want to be on the negotiating table. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, in fact, last year in one of his poll rallies in Manipur, had said that time has come for normalcy in Manipur, and the government is waiting for people to come and talk, and for negotiations, and to negotiate on all aspects. And as I said, a lot of groups have actually come forward, and they have softened their stand on what it used to be earlier, especially in Manipur. But it's ethnic violence such as this that sort of creates that scare.
Yes.
That what if this spills into an area that turns into the insurgent groups taking over and the security forces.
Yeah.
Then things not that things are not out of hand, they already are.
Yeah.
But then the scale of that problem just reaches another level.
Yeah. And which is why exactly we're talking about this on the defense podcast. So what you said right now, the sheer level of complexities that are involved in this whole thing, is that perhaps the reason? Because reason for the violence still continuing, even though it's sporadic now. That's what the reports come to us. Because a big question that's been asked about right now is, why is the government, or the governments, if you want to also include the center, why are they not being able to just bring the violence under control? I mean, the issue could be whatever. The issue could be a demand for a special status that would, give you some reservation in jobs and education. The issue could be about land rights. But that can be figured out later. First of all, why can't you just get the violence
law
under
and order?
control?
I mean, that's a big
you
concern
have
at this
rifles
point
of the state police being looted from the armories, and then obviously I'm
And
guessing...
you've also had videos of the state police and Central Armed Police Forces,
Yes.
Assam Rifles. They've gone viral.
Yeah.
They are fighting. Something
Yeah.
has happened. So again,
Tough to
it's
figure it
a
out,
very, very tough situation.
No,
to
so, but
be in.
my question then being, is it also an acknowledgement from the government's part that this is not as simple as just deploying a set of forces and take a heavy-handed approach and just like bring everything under control? It
See, the
can't be
government
done like
has
that.
tried to do what it does in such situations, which is the standard operating procedure, I guess. The Home Minister has made certain statements. He did visit Manipur.
He did visit, yeah.
He was
Last
there.
week.
Yeah. There is a commission that has been formed, will be chaired by a retired Chief Justice of a High Court.
Yes.
6 cases have been registered by CBI.
The CBI has taken over, yeah.
So, I mean, whatever is required for the messaging, that's been done. But how do you stop the violence on ground? That's a challenge, and authorities are struggling. I mean, they've clearly failed in doing that, and they are struggling. And heart-wrenching stories are coming out of how homes have been burnt. And at the same time, you've seen stories of how people actually have saved each other's lives. There was a story that our reporter Akshay Dongre did when he was in Manipur on how a school teacher actually ensured that kids are safe in a particular area.
Yes.
So these kind of stories have also come, and things are not very good. That's all that I can say. And it will take a lot of time. And the big fear, as I said, is that this domestic internal domestic civil issue
Exactly.
has the potential of
Invited.
turning into a big security insurgency kind of problem, even though the genesis is not that. And this disclaimer we can
Has to be
give as
repeated
many
again and again,
times as possible.
No, I get
That's
your point.
not what the genesis of
Is
the
at all.
current violence is.
But it could take the shape of that.
It could take the shape, and these groups could take advantage. It's very easy in this kind of situation to take advantage and target security forces.
Yes.
Who will know who's done
Exactly.
what? So those are the bigger concerns.
Yeah, I mean, the group like that would actually see this as a blessing in disguise. I mean,
And they are not
perfect
one, no.
opportunity.
There are
many,
several groups that small, big, internal fighting between them. It's impossible for somebody who doesn't track it, follow things that are happening there to understand what this means.
What this means, yeah.
It's a very complicated issue.
We'll talk more on this and especially about what happens in a situation like this when the Indian army is involved. And it's involved because of obvious reasons that we discussed. But we'll do that after a quick break.
And the dealing of the Ahmadiyas is normally not by the state because the state has grown. The state recognizes Islam. The state has grown. State is understanding that the international community is watching. So they're trying to be a little tolerant. Okay. But it's the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan or some such group that will come and say, take on these minorities. And the state looks the other way, of course.
Yeah.
It's not like the state is not... you're complicit in turning a blind eye to.
Exactly.
There is complicity there as well. So you turn a blind eye because there's vote bank and the TLP and others have Sunni votes to garner.
That is why they want to please them.
And Ahmadiyas don't.
Yeah.
So they're not a vote bank.
They're not a vote bank.
That's the
They're not allowed
difference.
to
So
vote.
it's very rudimentary in how they're handling it. In China, it is state. It comes from the state. The decision is not by private citizens or some organization or group.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference in how the two states are handling it. We see a lot of minority persecution in Pakistan, nobody doing anything, no action being taken, people asking and they're saying that, we're taking action, so on and so forth. In China, you don't need to ask the state because it is state ordered.
Yeah.
You're telling the world that the state is doing this to its people. There, it's not the state doing it to their people. It is the state being complicit with these elements that are harming the social fabric of the country. So there's a huge difference.
Interesting.
But what CCP also does, and this is a very important point, there are about 90 million members of the CCP. If you want to be a part of the fold, the party, the government, you're part of the party then?
Yeah.
They are not allowed to practice religion. So even if increasingly there are youngsters who are in the private sector working and want to take to religion, if you're a party member and you cannot hold religious beliefs.
Hello and welcome back. Abhishek and I are discussing the recent violence in Manipur and during the course of it we ended up talking a bit about the Northeast in general and the security situation over there because everything is interlinked. You can't
talk,
take this
just Manipur without not talking about Northeast. It's and that's the reason why we are doing this on our defense podcast.
Because it is like Abhishek was explaining before the break. It is not an issue limited just to an ethnic clash between two communities. I mean, even though that's the issue, but
it could spiral
because of the
into
situation
something
around,
else.
and like we discussed before, I mean, it's just as simple as violence happening anywhere.
Yeah.
It could happen in Delhi, it could happen in Bombay.
See, there
you'll
used to
have
be, you
the
remember,
local bad elements.
I don't know if you guys were old enough to be following when it was very common in Bihar and parts of UP when there would be caste wars. This is like a caste war.
Like a caste war,
communities clashing.
Yes.
But Bihar or UP did not have, they were not border states.
Yes.
They did not have insurgent elements like you have here. So one wouldn't think of the external security, larger security paradigms associated with it. It was treated just like a law and order, public order kind of an issue. But that luxury is not there in a state like Manipur or Nagaland that has a history of not just ethnic violence, but also insurgent violence that has happened over the past so many decades. Again, we mentioned Kashmir. It's so easy to talk about Kashmir, insurgency in Kashmir. Fighting insurgency in Northeast has been one of the biggest challenges of our security forces. And not many people would know it. That a lot of secret, quiet, clandestine operations are being carried out by special forces. In
Actually,
the
I've
Northeast.
read about this. That special forces are quite heavily deployed in the Northeast.
Very heavily
and some of the, like you said,
Very heavily.
secret that we don't read about. But you'll read about them maybe like 10 years later when someone
No,
retires.
you'll read about them if a gallantry award is given.
If it's given, exactly.
And उसमें भी ज़्यादा नहीं पता चलता है.
हाँ, वो तो
Just
basic
what
सा
the citation
recommendation.
says. कि in the
Which has-
jungles of Manipur bordering Myanmar, an operation was launched. ये हुआ. Not a lot of details come out.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that special forces are there carrying out several quiet operations that are not talked about.
Also, I guess because this terrain is such, it's made
Terrain
for
is
special
extremely
forces.
tough. Extremely tough terrain. Challenges are very different because a lot of these insurgent groups have mastered the art of guerrilla warfare
And ambushes.
and ambushes. So carrying out those kind of operations is a big challenge.
Yeah.
And that's why special forces are the ones who are chosen for it.
Yeah. So I want to kind of now move focus to what we just briefly kind of discussed, the military and when it is involved. It is obviously involved because, like we discussed, because of this, you have several regions, several districts of the Northeast in almost every state under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Which is where the Indian Army gets involved. The Indian military in general, I would say, gets involved. Now, tell me what happens in a situation like this, like the one that we've been witnessing in the last 1 month, because I've seen Army also does at times get involved during ethnic clashes in other parts of the country, or basic violence between two groups for whatever reasons, as riot control.
when
basically,
whenever
you have big
riots
riots
happen,
happen,
things
you
get
have
out
the
of
army coming
control,
in.
yeah.
But like I think you've said this before, and I think almost everyone knows this. During those times, the army kind of operates under the civilian administration, and of course, no such region is immediately declared under AFSPA. It's like just
Not at
sort
all.
of help.
Not at all.
But what happens?
Gujarat riots happened. Army was
yeah.
called. Post Babri Masjid, several places in UP were burning. Army was called. But they don't turn into AFSPA controlled areas.
Exactly.
Certainly.
So what happens when violence, the root cause of which is not insurgency, like we discussed, is actually long festering issues between two groups of people in a state or a region? When ethnic violence breaks out between them and that region is under AFSPA, there's the threat of insurgency like we talked about, and you have to bring that violence under control. The army is already deployed there, so obviously army is going to be playing a role in the immediate riot control.
Assam Rifles is permanently deployed in the Northeast.
While the threat of insurgency still...
So Assam Rifles, technically is a paramilitary force. The cadre that they have, soldier cadre, is not the Indian Army. But it's officered by Indian Army. So all officers of Assam Rifles are Indian Army. Again, a bit of a complicated situation. It's confusing.
Yeah.
And the uniform and all, at least the fatigues are similar to what the army wears. Not the same, similar.
Yeah.
There's a thin difference before somebody picks up and roasts us and trolls us. They don't know the difference between
the uniforms.
So it's similar. The fatigues. And anyway, the fatigues of the Indian Army have changed now completely. But the old one is still being worn. It's not gone out of circulation completely. So we end up diverting to so many things, isn't it? While discussing, say, Manipur, we've suddenly gone to uniforms. Anyway, then that's the idea. Be natural and talk about whatever sub-subjects come up in the conversation. So in this case, Assam Rifles is anyway already there. The Indian Army has also been deployed. I'd like to clarify that. To control the situation. They're not there to carry out any operation. No anti-insurgency operation. But it's a state which is quote unquote affected by insurgency. It's an HAFSPA state. I mean, one needn't say anything else. So if tomorrow, it's a hypothetical thing, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, again, very sensitive thing. Tomorrow, let's see, there is an anti-insurgency operation that happens somewhere in Manipur. There could be a lot of chaos, confusion over it that has the army overstepped. So I hope, the army doesn't need to carry out any anti-insurgency operation right now. And that's what makes their job in such situations
so difficult.
Very, very fragile.
Yeah.
The situation.
I'd not want to be an officer of the army in that place right now.
I mean,
Because I think you'll end up second guessing yourself. Like, no.
well, an officer of the Indian Army will not say what you said. Their job is to.
Which is why I'm not an officer.
They are trained for such situations.
They are trained, but
you
on a
never
serious
know
note, it's
what
just
happens
a
when.
highly stressful
Of course, it is.
situation for them as well. Then
To be any uniformed service, even police for that matter, when if there is any kind of unrest, the stress levels anyway are high in these kind of jobs, and when these kind of things happen, you can imagine them getting amplified by so many levels.
yes,
So yeah, it's not the best place to be in, and that's why you are seeing those videos where some army jawan is getting into a spat with the local police. Then you see an officer come in and trying to sort of douse the fire. At the same time, standing up for what his jawan is saying.
he has to.
It's a funny situation.
Tensions are high, I would say.
It doesn't look good on when those things go viral. Those videos, people in uniform getting into a spat when there is the situation is so volatile. But that's only a video. We don't know what happened before.
Just before that.
And
what
these
after
are
that,
signs of the
exactly.
stress that they are going through as well. Those symptoms are there.
Yeah.
One can argue that, they are professionals. They're not supposed to be behaving like this publicly, this, that. This is the harsh reality of the stress.
And that's, I think, part of the reason we chose and decided to talk about this issue, because it's easy, like you said, to sit here, be an armchair expert and, just make your comments on so and so is right. That Jawan should not have talked to the cop like that. But the situation, like I think we've tried to explain in this past half an hour, is not really. And I mean, Abhishek has given us more insight than I could have gotten from. I have gotten some insights from various articles that I've read over the last couple of weeks. But what you've described, that's I think it's one of those episodes where I'm again like, I just don't know what's the way out of it. I would not know if I was the CM, if I was the Home Minister, which is I'm not, I'm guessing. But if I was part of the establishment to kind of figure out how to resolve this, at least in the immediate future, don't really have any answers.
So there was a mention of the 2015 ambush where 18 soldiers, Indian Army soldiers died, and then the surgical strike carried out by the Indian Army in
response,
Myanmar. In Myanmar. I happened to be in Assam when this happened.
So you hadn't gone in response to the earlier ambush?
No. I was, when the ambush happened, I happened to be in Assam. So there was a lot of interest. Parts of Assam have also seen a lot of insurgency.
Yes.
It's Ulfa and things like that, which is reduced now. So I was interacting with some cops. They said that army to karwai karega. They were very clear about it, that retaliation will happen and it will happen quickly. That's the work ethic with which the army functions. So that was a clear-cut case of you being targeted, and you're well within your rights to hit back.
Yeah.
There's no confusion there. And so much so that the police guys I was interacting with, they also knew that the retaliation is going to happen, and it will happen very quickly, and it will be the retaliation will be much more than what the insurgent group has carried out. And they also said that this is the difference between police and army. When the police is attacked, there have been past instances where the police has also been attacked. Because of local factors, local politics of the state, the retaliation from the police is not an immediate option for the political leaders. But for the army, it's very much possible, because it's seen as an attack on the state, on the country, when you attack the army. So that's the difference in these situations. Here we are once again reiterating, this is not an insurgency related problem as of now. So taking those calls on how to take action, what action to take against who, you hear of that, shoot at sight orders are
Orders,
there,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
it's not as
they're not on a shooting spree. You've not really heard of the forces, going out killing people who are coming out,
or the police for that matter.
Yeah, forces. That's why I said the forces. Yeah. So these things are there to deter people not to venture out, things like that. But the real rioters, the ones who are indulging in violence, are anyway coming out. So what action is being taken against them on the ground becomes difficult. Do you fire at them? Do you take them in custody? What do you do? Those are the challenges that the security forces face in these scenarios, and especially the army and Assam Rifles that are sort of offensive forces.
Yes.
You had last year a very unfortunate incident in Nagaland where some mistaken identity, something happened, civilians were killed. Yeah. Those were special forces.
Yeah.
Special forces carried out those accidental killings. Again, AFSPA has come to their rescue. Prosecution sanction has not been given against them. Big debate whether what should happen in these kind of circumstances. Army chief on record at that point of time that law of the land will be followed.
And
he was right.
AFSPA is the law of the land over there right now. So it is.
That's also a law of the land. Yeah, there will be internal inquiries, internal actions would be taken.
I'm pretty sure in that case, without sounding as though we are trying to defend the army over here, but I'm pretty sure that whatever the reason was for the mistake that happened, that will be addressed at the army's level.
It should be addressed. We don't know.
We might not find it out, but
we should find out.
That is
should
true.
be told. It should be told that what has happened.
That is true. I agree with that.
I'm pretty clear about that. That whatever action is taken should be told. Not telling
just gives an impression that you're protecting your own. And
that's not the kind of messaging you want in 2023, 2024, 2025. In this, but the thing is that a lot more pressure can also be put from various groups, including us as journalists, asking these tough questions. It happens, but I don't know if it works every time.
So I think, because issues like these are not really very clear. It's a thin lines here and there. And I think the overall theme of this episode was that I was a bit apprehensive actually about this topic because of what you said. First, it's a topic that, it's not really widely talked about. So the reference material for me, even on my daily life, is not much. I tend to end up reading about it when something like this happens and not as part of course. Normally I would for anything that happens to do with the military. And of course sensitivism involved. So because of which I think both of us were actually questioning at the beginning and asking our producer Anaki, should we go ahead with this? I said we should because I think your insights and my wanting to know what's exactly the situation there would actually end up being a good conversation. I think it's what happened, if I'm not wrong. And like I said, you can drop an email to us at pods@indiatoday.com. That's pods@indiatoday.com, or text us at 8588966996. Thanks, Abhishek, once again.
Thank you.
Great insights, very engaging conversation as usual. Learned a lot, like I end up doing every Thursday when I come in for a recording over here. And thanks to our producer, Anna Priyadarshini. That's it with this week's Defense Dose. For more, tune in next week. Till then, stay safe and do not cross any boundaries without a passport. Bye-bye.